Back once again for the renegade master. 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 Back once again for the renegade master.
Hello my renegades, and we are back this bright and early morning. And what are we back into? We are on to Married at First Sight Series 8, and we are now on episode 14. And all I can say, it was a fiery one. It was an absolute fiery one. And it was, whew. All I would say is people should learn to stop spreading rumours about people, whether it be factual or not. And people shouldn't chat other people behind other people's back, because that does tend to come out in the wash. That's the first thing I'm going to say. The second thing I'm going to say is, before I get started into this episode, as I always say, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that notification button so when you know I am on and doing videos. And let's delve into this episode, this juice episode. So we see that Roz and Thomas did actually sleep together, and it was a lot better than it was before. It goes on to Ella and Nathaniel talking about their intimacy week. And basically, as Ella said, their relationship is absolutely complex. It is really, 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 really complex. They're making small, tiny steps, especially with intimacy week, and the fact that Nathaniel was a little bit more open, especially with her sitting on his lap and them getting closer. But Ella seems to be the type of person where she just wants that quick, instant spark. She wants to be kissing you, she wants to be holding you, she wants to be doing all the good stuff. But Nathaniel isn't that way. He's quite methodical. But the only thing I do say about their relationship is it can become quite toxic, especially when they're having certain discussions and both of them want to be right. Then they don't tend to listen to each other, and then they tend to speak over each other, which in turn causes a full-on fucking blowout between them. Full-on blowout between them. That's what happens with Ella and Nathaniel, and they can't keep going on in that pattern. There's going to come a time where they're literally going to have to sit and literally be open and speak about the issues that are going on between them. So then it moves to Shona and Brad. So as you know, they've had their little discussion in terms of what's been happening within their relationship, and in terms of what the experts said specifically about their relationship, well, marriage I should say. And basically Brad is just, you know, saying the Brad stuff like dramas for the kids. Shona is starting to feel doubt in terms of their relationship, and basically that he always paints a pretty picture when he's talking to the camera, so he doesn't really say exactly what is going on. We have to literally find out in drips and drabs what's going on between Shona and Brad, because Shona will bring it out to somebody else, whereas Brad will literally beat around the bush with it. And this is what he did at this time, beating around the bush with it, because he's basically saying that they're okay now, but you're not. You're really not okay, and it's only a matter of time before that shit just explodes wide open at the end of the day, because we already know, like, I think it's shown, I'm not sure if it's shown in this episode or the next episode, that, you know, Brad and Shona are asked to leave, and we will get into that at the end of the day. We will get into that. So then you see Peggy and George, and Jay goes over for like a little chat and stuff. And this is why I say you shouldn't tell stories out of school at the end of the day. This is not the schoolyard. And you actually told something to Peggy and George, which in actuality, yes, it was a fact. Yes, it happened. But I'm like, you were there. If that happened where you was, why are you speaking about it to Peggy and George? Why didn't you go straight to Terence and Portia and say, look, I was quite uncomfortable that night, and this is what happened at the end of the day? Because you don't know where Terence and Portia are in their relationship, and you don't know whether she'd been open and honest with him and told him exactly what was what. So you caused a bit of drama for nothing. So it started with Jay. At the end of the day, the drama started with Jay, because Jay went out and told Peggy and George that Terence had left the group. A couple of them were together because Jay and Luke were there, and a couple of the other couples were there, and Terence left. And when Terence left, you know, it was a drunken, stupid game, as you do. They played spin the bottle, and apparently Portia was kissing other people's husbands with consent from the other husbands. Now, note the key word, yeah, because I note through this episode and then the next episode, yeah, everybody blew up at Portia and how she behaved. But nobody picked up on the fact that, you know what, Portia didn't kiss herself. There were other husbands there. So who were the husbands she was kissing? So maybe you need to have a chat with them. Do you know what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, they know that they're married, just as Portia knew that she's married. So why did they not have a chat with them or pull them up about their behaviour? Because Portia did not kiss herself. So then we get to Portia and Terence. Okay, they're in their flat. They seem to be getting on okay because Portia's messing about with Terence and telling him to get out of the kitchen because she's cooking. That's how Portia sees her role at the end of the day. So I ain't gonna delve into that. That is how Portia sees her role and her marriage to be with Terence. And basically, it comes out that Portia's actually had the chat with Terence. Now, I don't know how much she told him in terms of what happened that night, but apparently Terence was fine with what she told him. Terence didn't seem to mind at all. He seemed to be quite open with her. He seemed to be quite receptive with her in their marriage and in their relationship. But the one thing Terence cannot abide is drama. But the thing of it is, with this group, you know there's going to be some type of drama because people can't help but putting themselves in other people's relationships. Their relationships ain't great, so they have to throw the misery out to everybody else around them at the end of the day, which is totally unfair. And this is the culmination, I will say, when I get to the next episodes and I speak about it, especially when I get to the Confessions of the Chair, this will be the culmination of what is the straw that breaks the camel's back for Terence and Portia's relationship. All I will say is within this experiment, you quickly pick and learn who to trust and who not to trust, and who you can do things in front of and who you can't do things in front of, because as they always say, it should have stayed where it was. They all engaged, whoever it was, in that game of spin the bottle. It should have stayed where it was. It was Jay taking it to Peggy and George that then caused the further issue, because I think George, and especially Peggy, have an issue with Portia. But George was trying to use it as a placeholder in terms of, Terence is my friend and I'm looking out for my friend. No, you're not. No, you're not, mate. No, you're not. You got up on your high horse and thought you were doing something when you actually weren't at the end of the day. So then we get to the dinner party. I won't go through everything, but we'll get to the dinner party where everybody meets and all the new couples are coming in and they're meeting all the new couples as well. Peggy and George is already het up, ready to get raring with his mate. George is all ready to get raring with his mate. As he said, he's fed up with people pretending to be prim and proper. And I'm like, why does it matter? Why does it matter? Because at the end of the day, that's a situation for Portia and Terence to sort out. If it affects their relationship and their marriage, that's for them to sort out, not for you to freaking well sort out and open your mouth and ask questions to anybody about what does it matter to them. At the end of the day, Peggy and George have their own bloody issues that they need to work out. They have their own issues that they need to work out. So you should not be opening your mouth on anybody else's marriage in any way, shape or form. So the experts were concerned in terms of what George has said. So they were going to sit back and wait and see what the hell was going on. So then you see Jay and Luke enter and they have their chats with Peggy and George. And basically Peggy's talking about like the intimacy week and how George couldn't wait to get his fingers in the box and test out all the new gadgets and this, that and the other. And I'm like, your issue with your husband is around how open you can be with him sexually. Yeah, you know that this man, and everybody can see that George is open quite sexually. We can see that. We can see that, and we can also see his frustration too. I think that probably played a part in the way his mouth was flapping, to be fair, in the dinner. In the way George's mouth was flapping in the dinner, I think that played a part in his frustration in the terms of he don't get no release from Peggy at the end of the day. And that's something that they need to work on. That is something that they need to work on. I know sex is not the be all and end all of a marriage or relationship, but you know what? It's one of the important things within a marriage and relationship. It really is. It is. People may say, oh, I don't put a lot of onus on having sex and this, that and the other. Depending what your personality is like, some people do. And George is one of them. So then you pick up on Brad and Shona walking in and they look absolutely off. I mean, Shona looks like she can't wait to let go of his hand and go off and chat to the girls and be on that side of the room rather than be stuck next to him, basically. So you start to see the little fissures and the little cracks forming within their marriage because they place themselves on that pedestal of being the strongest couple within the experiment, being the golden couple within the experiment. Nobody put them there. But Brad put himself on that pedestal. So now you're starting to see that pedestal wobble and start to crumble, basically. So when they're having their chats, Brad basically turns to Shona and says, oh, are you going to come over here? And she basically says, no, she's fine where she was. And I'm telling you, this is it. This is it, because Shona can see, because her friends have opened her eyes in that sense, but Shona can see that there's a little bit of a power imbalance going on between them at the end of the day, and it's been cultivated because they isolate themselves from other people. And I think that's part and parcel in terms of how manipulation and controlling behaviors start, when you start to isolate that person from other people to be able to instill your own views, thoughts, wishes and wants onto that person and expect them to accept it and follow your lead. But that's not what Shona wants. So basically, Shona's shown a bit of a stance where she didn't, at this point, she didn't go run roughshod right straight over to Brad, sit on his lap and start kissing his freaking face off. So that was the difference between them two. So then you see Tasha and Paul walking. Nothing to say about them. They're getting on smoothly. So you see Roz and Thomas walking, and I'm telling you, these two do look good. These two do look good with each other, and I do hope it works out for them, and I do hope they do the work in order for it to work out for them, because it looks like they're getting to a place of acceptance with each other. They're getting to a place of getting on that same page with each other, and I like what I'm looking at the moment. I like what I'm looking at the moment. Also, all I'm going to say in this episode, because I'll talk more when I speak about the other episode, that Thomas is a dark horse. Thomas is an absolute dark horse. You see Brad and Thomas having a chat, and he's basically saying to Brad that, you know, there's progression between him and Roz. And Brad is basically turning around and saying that there's things that him and Shona need to work on and things that they may be clashing on. We already knew this from the get-go, mate. We knew this. As time went on, we knew this, that there's things that used to are clashing on, but it's not the things that Shona's clashing on, it's the things that you want Shona to literally follow in line with you. And when she's not following in line with you, you say that you two are clashing because you can't accept that piece of Shona not actually agreeing to everything that you say. That's how I'm seeing it. So then you see Laura and Arthur walking together, and they look okay. They do look okay together. That's all I'm going to say about them two. They do look okay together. And then you see the new couple, Jordan and Erica, walking. And Jordan is saying, Erica's basically telling the girls after they've met that it's a good match. And Jordan's saying to the lads that they're getting on well. And Laura then, of course, has to jump in and say, oh, he's punching with her. How is he punching with Erica? How is he? Because Jordan's a good lad and good looking in his own right. How is Erica punching with Jordan at the end of the day? That's just filling that girl's head full of guff. I ain't saying that she ain't good looking, and I ain't saying that she ain't pretty. She is. But at the end of the day, when Laura's indicating that he is punching with Erica, what are you basing that off? What are you basing that off? Because the only way you can base it off is looks at the end of the day. Filling that girl's head full of absolute puff. That's what you're doing. And I think that's how Laura sees the world as well. Laura sees the world because I believe that she thinks Arthur is punching with her. He actually ain't. At the end of the day, he actually is not. So in come Portia and Terence, and they were like really connected with each other, laughing and smiling and this, that and the other. And they already kind of knew that something will more than likely be brought up from the night of the spin the bottle party. And as it was, it seems as though Portia had literally had that conversation with Terence and told him what had gone. At the end of the day, Terence was of the view that he don't want no drama. He doesn't like drama, and he doesn't want to be in any drama, so he really doesn't want no drama coming his way. And all I thought is, you know, with these people, there's going to be drama, and you are going to be the main focus of it, because George has got to be in his freaking bonnet over something. Because if you saw the look that George gave, more so Portia, he was giving a look to Portia. It looked like he was giving it to Terence and Portia, but he was giving it to Portia. And I'm just sitting there like, what has crawled up your ass? Like, seriously, George, what has crawled up your ass? Because this game had nothing to do with you. Someone came and told you something. So at the end of the day, you sit in your quietness because you weren't there. You didn't see the context of anything, because anyone can throw something out to you, but there has to be context to it. You don't know the context to what had happened and what had occurred at the end of the day. You don't even know who the other husbands were that were kissing the face off, of Portia at the end of the day either. But you literally had a freaking bee in your bonnet and wanted to fuck Portia over royally. That's how I saw it. So basically, you see Luke. And again, I like Luke. I like Jay Moore, I do. I like Luke. But within this scenario, within this situation, he became like a drip to me, to be fair. He became like a drip because he literally sat there and spoke to Terence and asked Terence what he was saying. Terence didn't mention that Portia said anything to him, which is a bit strange for me, because my first thing would have been, you don't need to tell me nothing. She's told me everything. So everything's cool, everything's dandy. You can go back and tell whoever's said anything to you that everything's cool and everything's dandy. That's what he could have done to shut that conversation down, but Terence didn't. Terence was on a different kind of level that night. He was literally on a different kind of level that night. So basically, as some people do within the couples, they want to find out more information. They want to know, well, what is it that you know that I may not know? Because I may know it all. She may have been open and honest with me and told me the truth. So Luke was there telling Terence about the game. And Terence is basically saying, it's a game. I'm a grown man. I think it's a stupid game at the end of the day, but I'm a grown man at the end of the day. So then he turns around and asks Luke, how many guys did she kiss? And Luke said 4. And it was like proper kissing. Now, to me, Terence didn't look shocked at that information. Terence looked amused. That's the only thing I can say. Terence looked amused by the information that Luke was giving to him. So now, at this point, Terence is saying that he felt off because he didn't realise Portia was that way in terms of being married to someone and kissing the face of other people. And as he said, I cannot imagine my wife doing that, and it's mad. To him, it was mad that he could imagine his wife, after he's left to go back to the flat, partaking in a childish game of spin the bottle. And I mean, what adults haven't, to be fair, been taken back to your childhood when you've been stupid drunk and decided to play spin the bottle? Albeit you might have been single in those days, because you probably wouldn't have engaged if you were with someone at the end of the day. But hey ho, here we are. So I'm like, so I'm kind of like, are you saying, is he indicating that Portia didn't tell him everything that went on that night after he left? Or is he just playing a game to see what it is that people know and what people are talking about? That's the only thing I can surmise it to, that he's trying to pinpoint what is it that people are talking about and what might be the possible thing that's going to come up tonight and start drama. And Terence knew it was going to be around Portia. So basically, Terence and Luke are still continuing to have this conversation, and Luke has brought up that he would class what Portia did as basically cheating, because he said to Terence that him and Jay were there, but they put in strict boundaries of what they would do and what they wouldn't do at the end of the day. And Terence was then thinking, well, if I was the one to do that with a couple of the wives here, would Portia see that as cheating in and of itself as well? So basically, Portia came over because she could see it was going on. So basically, Portia came over and wanted to have that chat with Terence as well. I can't remember if it was at this bit or a bit later on, but I think it was before she went and spoke to Terence, or it might have been afterwards, that George started going in on Terence. No, it was afterwards, so I will get to that. I'll reel around and come back to that. So anyway, Portia's asked Terence what him and Luke were talking about, because it looked to be very intense. And basically Portia said she just wanted to talk about the whole thing. So Terence did ask her, basically, it's on the point of where you class kissing as. Is it cheating at the end of the day? So Terence said to her, if I had done that, what would you have done? Would you have seen that I cheated on you and it would have blown up to epic proportions? Well, Portia played a mean game in terms of out talking that scenario and basically saying, well, no, because of X, Y, and Z. She basically said that if he was caught in a bedroom with one of the wives or somebody, then yeah, she would class that as cheating. And I'm like, Portia, you're not telling the truth. You are not telling the truth at all, because if you had went up to the flat and then someone came to you the following day, or Terence came to you the following day and says, look, this is what happened, this is what I kissed a few people, we played spin the bottle, you'd be wanting to know who the wives were, why would he do such a thing, you would want to know that. And I'm sorry now, Portia's reaction was absolutely bollocks. And I think at this point is when Terence was actually watching everything that was happening and taking it all in. That's why he had that smile on his face. I call it smizing. It's kind of like between a smirk and a smile. He was smizing, and that's why he had that on his face, because he was literally going to step back and look at what everybody was chatting about, see how their reactions were, and then he was going to act accordingly. That's what I think Terence was doing. He was plotting a game plan in his head. So then as we move on, before they get into, you know, at the table, because this scene went on for quite a while, to be fair. It went on for a bit. Anyway, so as we went on, you see Laura pull Brad and talk about like his relationship with Shona. And basically what she was saying, the crux of it is I love Bradley, but I don't love Shona's husband. And you see when Brad puts that look on, the look that he gives Shona when he's not liking what he hears, he was giving that look to Laura as well, because he was being exposed. At the end of the day, Brad was being exposed, and that he wasn't really covering up exactly what he was doing, and the way that he speaks to Shona and the way that he speaks about Shona at the end of the day. And it became clear when they were on the confessions of the couch, and the fact that the words that he used were absolutely gross. He doesn't see it that way. I don't think he honestly sees it that way, but it was gross. So basically Brad then turned around and agreed with Laura, but he's saying, for me, the universe is my one true love. I'm like, really? Really, is it really? You've got a child, so that's a lie. Brad's got a child, so that's an absolute lie. When it comes to your child, your universe is not your one true love in that respect. So why is it your one true love with your wife? I don't understand that in the slightest. So basically he then goes on to say the sex is great, but emotionally and mentally they're not on the same level. And this again is where I keep saying that Brad puts himself above Shona and doesn't believe that she's on his level. And the only thing I'll agree with Laura with is the fact that he says no, they are on the same level, but they just look at it differently, they come at it differently. And that's why I said I would agree with Laura on that. At the end of the day, Brad is not open to the expression of Shona, because he doesn't believe that she is not on his level, because she doesn't listen to what he says. She doesn't follow through on what he says and how it should be at the end of the day, to the point where she should lose herself and put her all in Brad and literally follow him blindly. That's what Brad wants, someone to follow him blindly, because he's the oracle. That's how I can explain it. That's how Brad, he's painting himself, that he is the oracle in the relationship and the marriage between him and Shona needs to be the one to follow him. That's how I only can say it. So then we move on to the drama that comes up with Portia and George, because George decides to take his ass over to Portia and start to question her. And Portia's like, who are you? Why are you questioning me? Which is correct. Why are you questioning me? She's an adult. She ain't a child. You ain't her dad. At the end of the day, she don't have to answer to you. The only person she has to answer to in that room is Terence. That's it. That's it. Be all and end all. So George went off on the handle. And basically, he was pissing everybody off that night. When he did start going in on Portia and Portia went in on him just before they went into the dinner, Brad, of course, calls Terence over because Terence don't like to be in it. That's why Terence stood on the other side of the room and was chatting like before when he chatted to Brad, saying, I don't like the drama. At the end of the day, it is what it is. She did what she did. And I think he was upset because he did say, like, if it was me, I think the situation would be different. But all I can say is Portia did open herself up kind of to this by putting herself in that position, because as I already said, you've got to do things with people that you know you can trust that won't take it back to the rest of the group. You should have known with Jay and Luke, they're chatterboxes. They're chatterboxes. They're going to say what they're going to say at the end of the day, and they're kind of friends with a few people within that group, so of course they're going to take it back to people. Portia, as you would, got defensive, got really defensive, and basically said to George, why are you questioning me for? It had nothing to do with you when you weren't even there. And even everybody else was saying, what's wrong with you, George? Why are you saying these things? And literally going in on him. Even the quietness of Arthur perked up and said, why are you bothered about it? Why are you bothered about it? And Laura said, you were not judge and jury, which is true. He is not judge and jury of this. And he's like, well, I'm Terence's friend. That's why. No. That weren't it at all. You just wanted to dig at Portia. You wanted to dig at something, and your voice came out loud and clear to the point that you were so fucking obnoxious. It was untrue. And I think that put me back in my estimations of George, because I was actually warming to him. And the things that he said at that dinner table, even though he said it in French, there were motherfucking subtitles, love. There were subtitles. Even though he said it in French, there was some certain words that he used towards Portia, not realising, or if he did realise, that Portia knew French and spoke French fluently as well. But the shit that he said to her was uncalled for. Absolutely. I don't care if you're protecting your wife or not. It was uncalled for. So then it kind of was saved by the bell time, because you see Nathaniel and Ella walk in, and then after them you see JJ and Bianca walk in, and then you do see Terence having this conversation with Brad and basically saying that if George had an issue, if any of the couples had an issue with whatever happening in their marriage, or they needed to speak to him about something, come knock on my door. Is what he said. Come knock on my door. Don't take it to the whole group. Don't take it to the dinner. Don't create drama out of nothing. You had more than enough time to come to my door and speak to me about the issue that you have with my wife, but you didn't. And that's how I'm saying it. You didn't, because George wanted the drama. He wanted everybody to look at this woman, to look at Portia as though she's the devil in disguise. That's what he wanted to do. He wanted to break her marriage and everything down with Terence, and that's how I saw it. Especially in the way that he kept on going on at the end of the day. That is how I saw it. And it came clear that other people didn't think highly of George at all, have not thought highly of George at all throughout this whole experiment. But of course, with Peggy standing as his right-hand person at the end of the day, she's going to catch the brunt of it as well. She's going to catch the brunt of it, because she needs to have those conversations with her husband, because he sure as hell weren't listening to her that night. Let's put it that way. So now at last they get into the bloody room. I'm like, at last, bloody hell, they take them into the room. And Terence is the first one to stand up and make his speech, and basically told the group he don't get involved in any drama or mix up. So he was putting it out plain, just stop. And then as he was talking, Peggy interrupts him and throws Jay under the bus. And Jay looks like what the fuck? You raw. Like Peggy pulled, when it was Jay who came to us and told us that you were paying spin the bottle and Portia kissed some of the other husbands. And I'm like, you raw. And this is why I said you need to be careful who you tell your shit to. You need to be careful who you tell your shit to, because if you wanting that to keep between, that little bit of gossip to keep between you and them, with Peggy and George, you told the wrong person. So Jay was fucked off with that. And I thought, at the end of the day, you opened yourself up to being thrown under that bus, have those wheels rolled over you, because at the end of the day, you armed Peggy and George with information that they shouldn't have had in the first place. With your gossip, you armed them with that information. So Jay, you're as much at fault as they are. You had an expectation that you would give them this information, give them this piece of gossip, and then it wouldn't go any further. Well, you should have freaking well said that. You should have said that before you opened your mouth and told them that if I'm telling you something, you better make sure it don't go no further. Because if it does go any further, then I know who it's come from and I ain't telling you shit again. That's what you should have said. But she didn't. Anyway, so then as Terence is trying to talk, that's when Portia jumps in and basically says to George, you can say your bit, my friend, but don't question me. But Terence was there trying to talk, but they were literally having an argument over him. And this is what Terence didn't want. He was trying to make it plain that I don't want the drama and I don't want to be in the mix-up. And he kept on saying to Portia. And Portia was already gone at that point. Portia was gone at that point. And I think this is, again, is the second nail in the coffin for their relationship at this point, because Terence then sat back and just watched everything play out. And I think he realised at that point he didn't want no part of this. He didn't want a marriage with someone where they'll be quick to do something and then jump straight into it, because he was probably thinking, do you like the drama of this situation? Like, do you not see that I am uncomfortable with this situation? I don't like drama and I don't like mix-up. And he was probably thinking, would that be my life? Would that be my life if I continue to stay married to this person? That they will constantly be in mix-up that I would have to then try and fix. And that's what I think that's what he was looking for. He was literally answering his questions as he was sat there watching everything just play out. So you see Jay go back to Peggy and say to Peggy, I'm just shocked you threw me under the bus like that. And Peggy did deflect at the end of the day. She did deflect from the fact that Jay called her out for pushing her under the bus. But at the end of the day, as I already said, Jay, if you didn't want that information to be let out, then you should have made it plain and clear that you didn't want the information to be let out. Also, maybe you just shouldn't have said nothing. Maybe you just shouldn't have said nothing, because guaranteed, the husbands that were gung-ho in kissing Portia didn't say shit either. Like, didn't say shit either. And you didn't say shit about who was kissing Portia back. Let's just put that out there. So as the night wears on and everybody's having their conversations, you see George saying that he's not going to apologise for his behaviour and what he said, because what's said needed to be said. No, George, it didn't need to be said. You just wanted to pipe up and be the big man at the end of the day. You wanted to be the big man on campus, and nobody is taking what you say seriously in that sense. Everybody's thinking that you'd have just shut the hell up, because you was making an already bad situation very, 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 very worse. So then it moves on, and you see Nathaniel having a conversation with Thomas and Roz, and actually praising them and saying that he loves their growth, and that's where he wants him and Ella to be. So it isn't a case of Nathaniel not working at it. He's trying to, because that's where he wants them to be at the end of the day. So I think that he does have those feelings for her, but they're not as quick and fiery as Ella wants them to be. So then why do you see I think it's Ella, Shona and Laura chatting to Ella. So Laura and Shona are chatting to Ella, and I'm like, oh, here it goes. You wanted to throw shit out there, you and your husband, Peggy. Now it's going to come back on you tenfold, because what goes around comes around at the end of the day. So they tell Ella exactly what Peggy said about their relationship, because Peggy was very vocal about talking about Portia and Terence's relationship and talking about Ella and Nathaniel's relationship. So basically they told Ella that she turned around and said, that them two shouldn't really be there because this isn't about being in a friendship, it's about being in a marriage. So then Ella says, what? And tells her that she needs to stick her opinion up her arse, basically, which is true. Which is true. You have your own issues in your relationship and in your marriage. You need to freaking well deal with them, Peggy, at the end of the day. Nobody likes your husband. Deal with that one. Deal with that one instead of coming for everybody else's relationship because you're not happy in yours. So Ella was fired up, like proper fired up. So Ella took Peggy to one side and they had that chat with and basically Ella put it to her straight. I haven't come on here to find a friend. I've come on here to work at a marriage and a relationship with my husband at this moment in time. So Peggy was basically saying, but I didn't dig you out, because that's the words Ella used. And then she wanted to turn around and deflect, because this is what Peggy's good at. She's good at deflecting from the situation at hand and her questions, to put questions back on the other person where she has no right to put questions on them. So she turned around and she says, well, aren't you friends? And Ella says, well, yes, because of my husband. What do you want Ella to do? What do you want Ella to do? Because you can see when they're on the confessions to the couch, and I'm sure you all meet up as well when you're not always on a camera or when they're not always filming, and you can see the pressures that there are within their marriage and within their relationship, and where Ella is trying to get it to a space of they want to be connected with each other in the way that she was wished to be connected with each other. So for Peggy to come out and say that is full of bullshit, because who is it for her to say who should and shouldn't be on the show? Who is it for her to say that? It ain't. And this is where I think she then kind of aligns herself with George at the end of the day with her opinions, because she had no right to make that baseless opinion about Ella and Nathaniel. She had no right to make any opinions about Portia and Terence either. But her mouth just runs. Her mouth just runs, and she thinks it won't get back to nobody. But then this whole dinner just kind of fell apart, and everybody just fucked up with freaking George and Peggy, because basically it got to Ella being around the table, and basically Ella brought it back to the table, and Ella got to the point where she turned around and shouted out that you sat there thinking that me and my husband should not be on this show. How dare you, sort of thing. And the fact that she couldn't trust her anymore. And then Portia jumped in and started to get in at her too, and basically turned around and said to Peggy, when Peggy says, well, you talk about our relationships, Portia's like, I don't talk about you. I don't talk about none of your relationships. I especially don't talk about yours because you're boring. And this is where Peggy just literally like, because that's her thing. Peggy does believe that she's boring. In her marriage to George, Peggy believes that she is slightly boring at the end of the day. And I'm sure she's had that said to her too. So then George pipes up in his French, basically telling Portia you will not speak about my wife that way, and that he will get het up and he will get fucked up, and they will see a side of him that they ain't going to see. And then he calls Portia a big shit. And this is what I said. This is why I was like, yeah, nah, my love. You didn't have to go to insults. But the fucked up thing is, Portia understood every word he said and fucking flew it right back at him in French. Say, don't fuck with me because I know exactly what you're saying, and I will say it back to you in French. Portia stood her ground. But the fact that George felt comfortable enough to call her a big shit in his language, and you see the reason why George switched to French. You see why he switched to French? Because he didn't want everybody else to know what he was saying at that table, because he was being assaulting as fuck to Portia, but he didn't want anybody else to know what he was saying, so he could say what the fuck he wanted. Even Peggy was looking at him as if to say, I don't know what else to do. I don't know how to get him to shut up. That's what you made. You enabled him to be able to be comfortable enough to sit at that table like he is the be-all and end-all and the boss of the group, and be able to say the shit that he says. You enabled him to do that as well. But George did not win any brownie points with me at that point. But what I will say, this is where I'm going to end it, and I'll be back quick enough for the next episode. As I always say, please hit that subscribe button, please hit that notification button when you know I'm on and doing videos, and I'll speak to you all again soon. Peace out.